On April 6th, I stood in front of the council chamber's public notice board, staring at the freshly posted minutes from the night before. There it was, plain as day. Multiple complaints about Route 478's electrical surges at exactly 1842, dismissed with the phrase, "no actionable evidence." I'd heard that line before, brushed aside like static in the background. But every evening, right at 1842, something flickered along Route 478. My shop's lights would stutter, the register would freeze, and that familiar knot in my stomach would tighten. Something was wrong. Let me take you back to where it started. The notice board was its usual mess. Lost pet flyers, bake sale posters, and layers of bureaucratic printouts. But my eyes locked on the April 6th council minutes. That phrase, "no actionable evidence," kept jumping out. I read it again and again, trying to understand how they could ignore so many consistent reports. It wasn't just me. Other shop owners, delivery drivers, even parents from the park had noticed the same thing. A power spike at 1842 every day. The minutes listed the complaints, then dismissed them all in a single line. My jaw clenched. They knew the pattern. They just didn't want to deal with it. I scanned the page for anything useful and caught a line. Recent maintenance report for the junction box. Why mention maintenance if nothing was wrong? I snapped a photo and stepped back. If the council wouldn't act, I would. Somewhere in these papers was the next clue. I just had to find it. I texted the photo to Tommy, asking if he remembered any fire calls around 1842. He was good at keeping tabs, even if electrical issues weren't technically his job. While I waited, I circled the line about the junction box. The wording felt deliberate, vague but intentional. Had someone tried to fix something and failed, or were they just covering tracks? I pressed my thumb against the paper, the texture rough under my skin. The board was quiet, but my thoughts weren't. If there was a maintenance report, I needed to see it. Maybe Tommy could help. I checked the time, 1830. The next surge was minutes away. I had to move. Tommy met me outside the volunteer firehouse, hands deep in his jacket pockets. He looked uneasy, scanning the street before speaking. "Heard a crew was sent to mile marker 6, he said quietly, "but I'm not supposed to get involved." I could tell he wanted to help, maybe to make up for that call he missed last month. He handed me a flyer from the last community safety meeting. I scanned it and found a line, "routine junction box servicing." It matched the council minutes. Tommy shrugged. "That's all I've got," he said, but his eyes told a different story. Maybe he'd seen something. Maybe he just didn't want to get pulled in. I thanked him and tucked the flyer into my bag. The firehouse smelled like burnt coffee and rubber. Familiar grounding. If Tommy was nervous, there was a reason. I needed to know what he wasn't saying about mile marker 6. My next stop was the utility company. I found Evan Brooks leaning against his truck in the utility lot, sipping coffee and pretending not to notice me. I didn't waste time. "What happened at mile marker 6? I asked. He stared at the pavement. "Can't talk about ongoing stuff," he muttered, but I saw the hesitation. I reminded him the surges were hurting businesses, hurting my family's store. He finally looked up. "Check the utility inventory log," he said under his breath. "Might show what got swapped out." He didn't say if he'd been on the job, but his silence said enough. His fingers tightened around the coffee cup. Evan hated paperwork, but he liked overtime. Had he cut corners, or had someone told him to keep quiet? The only sound was the low hum of transformers. I scribbled a note, inventory log, mile 6. If I could get that log, maybe I'd finally see what had really been replaced, but why was everyone so tight-lipped about a simple component swap? The council office felt like a library after hours, too quiet, too watchful. I found Linda Park at her desk sorting folders. She looked up, cautious. I asked about the maintenance report mentioned in the minutes. She hesitated, then pulled a folder from the bottom of the stack. Inside, a report dated just before the last surge. I scanned it. Component replacement completed. No anomalies detected. The language was sterile, almost dismissive. Linda watched me, lips pressed tight. She didn't want trouble, but she let me read it. Maybe out of guilt, maybe just to get me out of her office. I copied the details. The date matched the last surge. If the component was replaced and nothing was found, why did the surges continue? I thanked her. She didn't meet my eyes. The report felt like a dead end, but I wasn't convinced. Sometimes the truth hides in plain paperwork. Back at the shop, I laid the maintenance report beside our utility ticket. The dates matched. Maintenance completed, then the surge hit at 1842, just like always. I stared at the numbers, heart pounding. For weeks I'd wondered if our wiring was to blame, but the ticket proved it. The surge came from outside. Our equipment wasn't the cause. We were just reacting to something upstream. I ran my fingers over the utility ticket, feeling both relief and dread. Relief that it wasn't our fault. Dread because it meant the problem was bigger. I thought about the other shops, the homes along Route 478, all the ignored complaints. I looked out the window. The sky was dimming. 1842 was coming. Whatever this was, it wasn't over. It was time to go public. I returned to the council chamber's notice board, hands shaking as I pinned a copy of the maintenance report next to the council minutes. I added a handwritten note. If nothing's wrong, why does it keep happening at 1842? My words looked small next to the official printouts, but they felt loud. I stepped back. A few people paused to read. The council minutes still stood there, insisting there was no actionable evidence. But now anyone could see the report, and the question that wouldn't go away. Through the glass doors I saw Route 478 stretching toward mile marker 6. The sun was setting, shadows lengthening across the pavement. I wondered who had really swapped the component and what they'd put in its place. The answers were out there, just beyond the edge of town. Tomorrow I'd go looking. But tonight, I watched the clock tick toward 1842, waiting for the flicker. If you've ever had your warnings ignored, or seen a pattern no one else will admit, you know the feeling. Stay sharp. Sometimes the answers are buried in the files no one wants to read.